Is this thing on? It is on. Holy mackerel, we are live. What is happening, everybody? All right, so, happy whatever day it is, Groundhog Day, I don't know, 40, whatever. Anyway, hope you're staying sane, and hope you are doing well. Make sure that you guys are still wearing your mask, your gloves, your hazmat suit, all that kind of good stuff. We don't want to have the COVID get you. So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about basically just some tuning stuff that I've been working on with my car. Dr. Diff, what's up, man? And to give you guys some ideas as far as, when you're putting together a tuner, when you're tuning a vehicle, especially one that you are spending a lot of time with, and when you're around a platform a lot, there's some things that you find that just flat out work, right? But oddly enough, because Mopars are their own special little breed of snowflake, every single one of them is a little bit different. And my car is absolutely no exception to that rule. My 392 SRT Challenger was the poster child of not being normal, right? So, it should actually come as no surprise to me because I've never had any one of my cars follow the norms as far as you can't just copy paste, in other words. And that's really more to the point. When we're talking about tuning and when we're talking about putting my money into something, the reality is that there is no such thing as copy paste. It has to be a custom tune. That's why can tunes, what I was trying to get to, it's why can tunes are such a bad idea. It's kind of the worst of all worlds. I mean, you're spending a bunch of money, but you're really not getting a lot for your money because you can only adjust certain very minor tables in the tune, basically because you don't have access to that vehicle for data logging. You don't have access to the fuel quality. You don't have access to the air density. You don't have access to elevation in general. And all of that makes a big difference. You also don't have access to the time of year that these things are being installed. So that's why when you look at the cost of a custom tune, a lot of times guys just, freak out. Their heads explode about the cost of the tune, when in reality, it's as important as any hard part you're going to buy, and even more important because it's the tune that makes all that hard part that you bought work. So anyway, it just kind of blows my mind. A lot of guys freak out because it's just you type in a couple of keystrokes and voila, a tune just kind of shows up in the car. And some people don't understand the value of the hard work that it went in to get those tunes put together. So I'm here to talk a little bit about that, bring you guys up to speed as far as some of the headaches that you have to go through when you're putting a tune together. Not only just in the process alone, especially if you're doing street tuning, and also just how much that a single tune may or may not work from car to car to car within even the same platform, and sometimes even the same year. So let me check in with everybody and then I'll get back to that. Doc Div's checking in saying, Yo, B Mason, what's up, man? Kay saying, have you seen the new all-electric Cobra Jet? No, I've seen the all-electric Mustang, though, and it's very impressive. There is also an all-electric Shelby Mustang, and Shelby Cobra. It was a Superformance component car. Don't really want to call it a kit because they're licensed. I should know I owned one. Just not electric. It was a big block. But yeah, I used to, when I lived in Northern California, I used to see the Tesla Roadsters buzzing around up there all the time, and the speed controllers would overheat, and they'd be sitting on the side of the road smoking. Sinister Red Eye saying, evening, Mr. Mason, evening, Mr. Red Eye. Let's see, Sherrod saying, what up, B? Let's get it tonight. Bored as hell. COVID-19 got me losing my mind. Me and you both, my friend. In more ways than one. Headaches, yep, and that ain't the truth coming from Doc Div. Big Shig saying, Dodge the brotherhood of muscle. I like it. So let's talk a little bit of tuning, because this is the dark art, right? Between tuning and camshafts, you got to be a witch and a warlock to get it right? But there's so many different ways to get to the same result, and that's what I want to get to also. when it comes to tuning. I don't want to wear you out on camshafts. We'll save that for another time. So just to give you guys a quick heads up, as bored as I've been, decided to take Little Miss Revlon out for a jaunt, and I started playing with the tune a little bit. And you know, the tune's already really good because it's stock for the most part, and that's what a lot of folks don't believe, and it's just the freaking way that it is. And I'm pretty transparent with my tune on my car. It's really here more to try to help to educate you guys, and so you guys get a little bit better understanding as far as how this stuff works and why it works. I mean, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater on details, but a lot of times you don't need to know how the clock works. You just need to know what time it is. So in this case, my car is running more or less stock timing. I've got a little bit of timing thrown at it past 6,200 RPM, and really actually it's past 6,000 RPM, but that's only to accommodate the shift points. I've extended the shift points very, very minorly, and the timing's just there to accommodate the shift point. In the stock tune, by the way, on Hellcats, and on a lot of cars, for example, anything past what the stock shift points are, you'll see it trail off in timing. That's just more of a safety type thing in the tune, kind of a buffer, if you will. So the thing is that, you know, there's really just nothing in my tune. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to play with it a little bit and throw a little fuel at it, because it's already got some fuel thrown at it, again, to accommodate some of the other changes that were made, primarily in the trans tune. And let's see how the car starts to react, because typically you start throwing fuel at it, you start throwing timing at it, boosted stuff loves it. So I got the car out and did my typical loop that I run, and get the thing pointed straight, get the data logger running, and keep in mind I'm logging time on the data logger. Kind of an aside here, without having access to a dyno, the next best thing is data logging. Because if I have a timer and I have a set parameter for an acceleration run, well then I have a dyno. And the shorter amount of time it takes me to cover a specified amount of speed, in other words, starting at say 70 and ending at say 130, then if it does that run faster, then the car's making more power. If it does it slower, then it's making less power. And it can do it slower because it's got a super full tank of gas, all the stuff's in the car, passenger and all that other stuff. Or it can do it because it's just not making the same kind of power. So it's all about power to weight here. Can you already guess what happened? So I get the car out, go playing around with it for science, right? This is just for you guys. It's my sacrifice. Anyway, I get the car out, point it straight, hit the logger, what? Run through the power pass, get out of the throttle, kill the data logger, go to my favorite spot, and then start analyzing data. Wouldn't you know, right off the bat, the car got slower. And so what is the parameter? Okay, the testing parameters are this. At 60 miles an hour at cruise, she goes what? At 70 miles an hour, I begin the timestamp. Or I recognize that time at the timestamp. It goes out to thousandths of a second. I will run that pull through about 130 miles an hour, because it's just easy on the data logger to pick 130, right? Because it's there. And typically that's what a lot of the stock cars will turn in the quarter. 130, 135, this will go 137, but at that point you're eating up a lot of terra firma and, you know, no sense in it. It's a decent parameters, that's what I'm going with. And plus I get a couple of gears that I can run through. I can go full load all the way to my shift point and have a shift point at its highest load shift point, and then I'm running it through 130 miles an hour. If there's, the thing is though, is on the data logger I'm actually running it about $140, which is about where it'll shift, and I've got all the data set. So I'm really not worried about what's happening after that, because that's really not getting me through the traps, because it traps at about 135. Anyway, I'm dragging that a little bit too long. So the car got slower. I said, you gotta be kidding me. There's no way. I put basically a tune in the car that should have picked up power. would have picked up power in any other Hellcat that you put that tune in. And it went slower. I said, God damn, you gotta be kidding me. So, sitting there, I thought, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong about this. Went out, took the car back around the loop again. Why? Timestamp was within 3 thousandths of a second different than the first hit. Still off to a bad start. Still things are not going the way that I wanted them to go. I immediately put the old tune in the car. Made the hit and the car went quicker. Yay! It went quicker and it wasn't as pissed off as far as knock sensors throwing up short-term knock retard also. So this is a case of tolerance stacking, perhaps. And this is what you'll run into with these cars. You know, some cars you just can't take as far with a tune. But this car is already run. I mean, I'm a tenth and a half away from running 9s for crying out loud with this thing, or at least a 999 or a 10 flat. It's already pretty much there. So adding fuel, adding timing, car did not respond well to it at all. And this is not uncommon, and this is really more to the point. It's not uncommon from car to car to car to have one tune that flat out does not work. That's why you have to have a custom tune by somebody who speaks fluent Mopar. And keep this in mind too. I didn't throw the kitchen sink at my car because I'm dealing with 93 octane fuel, and that's really kind of the hard parameter here that I'm working within. Now, if I were running race gas and I were doing a specific race gas tune to the car and I got the same results, there'd be a problem somewhere, I would think. But on 93 octane, I couldn't really have been any less surprised that the car went slower, even though this tune is a fairly proven tune. And actually, it's not an exact tune. It's not even as aggressive as the tune that I was even thinking about when I was putting this one together. And it still bumped into a little short-term knock retard. And on top of that, when it didn't, so I kind of got a little bit more aggressive with the knock sensor sensitivity here too, guys. So keep this in mind. I even got more aggressive on knock sensor sensitivity, and it still went into short-term knock. Really? And by the way, this was back to back to back, same temperature every single time. So the data's strong. The original tune is still the best. So let me check in with you guys real quick. Doc Div saying camshaft tuning is his favorite. We can get into that a little bit. Brian saying my new 2019 Challenger already depreciated 18 grand. What? That sucks. Jay saying a lot of cars are actually depreciating quickly. And by the way, I've been looking at C10 prices. Yeah, I know what y'all think y'all can get for it and what y'all are asking for them now. A little bit more in line with what I was thinking you can get for it. Let's see. Jay saying he's got a 2012 Charger RT Road and Track with Super Track Pack. I Diablo tuner and like the results, but the shift logic sucks. Quickness and firm are great though. What can I do? Get a custom tune, man. You've got to get your shift points lined out. That is the that is one of the things that it doesn't matter what you do to the engine side of a tune on these cars. The engines are very well sorted from the factory. All of the performance gains are really only in, let me think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-ish, 8 tables. Kid you not. And so that transmission tune is going to get you a lot more than any engine tuning will. So I would say focus on that and see if those guys, whoever you got your tune through, if it's, you know, like if it's just a canned Diablo tune, you need to get a trans tune. Dr. Diff saying, yep, and your tune is super easy. Oh, he's talking about, yeah. So Dr. Diff actually has seen my tune. In fact, I sent it over to him just to prove. I wanted somebody else's eyes, and he's very well adjusted with working with Hellcats, things like that. And I just said, look, you know, just so that somebody else knows what I'm up to and that I'm not full of shit, here's my tune. This is the tune that, I think it was going 1020s or 10 teens at the time. Here you go. Take a look at it. Because I trust Doc. I mean, there's nothing you're going to do with that tune that's going to be earth-shattering. I mean, it's an accident. It's a tune that you could actually put together by accident, and the results pretty much speak for themselves. Mike Corleone saying, good evening, Professor Mason with the arm flex. I like it. Jason Leonard saying, big Amsoil fan, changing my diff, and Amsoil only has 75 W90. 75 W90 should be close enough, right? Got a 6.4. Yeah, you should be good with that. Check the diff spec, though. I'm pretty sure it's good, but here's the thing. Dr. Diff is going to have to answer this. I know that the Mopar fluid is not synthetic, or it's a synthetic blend or something like that. I know that there are some guys that have run the synthetic and have had problems with the clutches slipping, and it's weird, but I don't know why. Also, don't forget your friction modifier. And if your fluid says it comes with friction modifier, put friction modifier in it. Let's see. Dr. Dude saying, did you ever shut the cat over temp off? Nope, it is still in effect. Although it is still at the adjusted temperature, but no, I never did turn it off because it still has cats on it. Dr. Dude saying, Jason, that small amount won't matter at all. We use 80 W90 all the time because that's what my Yukon supplier says he uses. That's perfect. That'll work. Let's see. Haha K saying, Master Mason, I fear that nowadays everything is too focused on numbers like horsepower, drag times, Nuremberg times, etc., not on driving experience. You know, I've been saying that for a while, and nowadays the problem, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Nowadays the problem is that these cars are just obscenely fast. And I go back, this is a great time, this is another way to talk about tuning here. So if you're a fan of the old school muscle cars, look up factory stock racing. Also look at a race series called FAST. That's a couple of different classes where the stock cars, if you want to call them stock, are limited to a tune-up and a rebuild, basically. And the FAST cars are just, they got the kitchen sinks thrown at them. But it's an optimized tune, and what a lot of folks don't understand is if you've never had the experience to drive something like that from the old school, you'll never be able to appreciate what these cars are like now. It's creepy how fast these things are. And it is all about numbers, and the problem is that a lot of folks are missing out on a very fun driving experience and it's being done because you're getting these numbers thrown in your face all the time. And it's really not a cool thing because I get it. The species is always going to evolve, right? But it's just weird how even the cars from way back then, as fast as they were, are dreadfully slow by today's comparisons if you only look at the numbers. But the reality is, get behind the wheel of a Buick Stage 1 and tell me that car is slow. Get behind the wheel of a big block Chevelle or a big block Galaxy and tell me that thing is slow. You'll be hard pressed to do so. And of course, those engines with some modifications, you're in the mid-10s, but it's creepy how far these things have come in such realistically a short amount of time, because it wasn't more than 10 years ago. Numbers like what these things put out today were unheard of, more or less. And now you got cars like the Hellcat, the ZL1, the GT500, all just making these crazy numbers. And realistically, the best driving experience out of all of them is probably the ZL1 if you're talking about just being able to do everything. And it's got a real manual. You can do the same thing with a Hellcat, but the ratios are kind of screwed up and it makes the car feel slow. Anyway, Jake's saying thanks to Doc. Let's see, Dr. Div saying, need to go E85. Listen, I'm not going to go E85 because to me, the amount of effort for me to go E85, that if I go E85, then why I might as well go lower pulley, upper pulley, port the snout, port the throttle body. You know, at that point, for E85 for me, it takes away, here's the big thing. E85 to me takes away the utility aspect of this car. You got to remember, I love taking this thing on road trips. It is a ball to have, you know, me and my wife hop into this thing, point it north, south, east, or west, lay into it, and just eat up miles and hours at a time. And to do that, I've got to have the convenience of 93 octane, and I've got to have a tune that will accommodate varying grades of 93 octane. It just so happens that the tune that I have that happens to accommodate varying grades of 93 octane is also, I don't know, pretty much the king of social distancing when it comes to stock boost Hellcats on 93 octane with a gear. So I win again. So let's see. Haha K saying, I say this because I feel like we are heading towards an era where we no longer require skill to drive a car, rather the car drives itself. Also gone on to say, and I feel that we consider a sports car today will be completely neutered and tamed, and although we are going faster, it takes the fun, the challenge, and the accomplishment out of driving a car. Man, I'll tell you what, you're onto something there, and you're probably right. And my only suggestion to you is this. Go get yourself a C5 Corvette. Go get yourself a C6 Corvette. But take a ride in a Gen 2 Viper. Don't buy it. Just find a buddy that's got one and have them give you a ride. The chances of surviving that encounter are, well, there's a chance you won't. Let's just put it that way. No, seriously though, that there are certain things about all of the nannies that are good. And I've had the nannies save my skin a couple of times, okay? But I also have lamented the fact that these cars, I should say, are just so laden with electronic stability add-ons. It can potentially take some of the fun out of the car, but you know what's a whole lot, you know, more fun than, you know, having nannies or not having nannies, rather, is having a car in one piece. And with the amount of power that these things are making nowadays, they are, here's the thing. Tire technology hasn't caught up with engine technology and transmission technology. True, you can get some sticky tires underneath these things, but the reality of that proposition is a little bit different. And because of that, you have to have those nannies and whatnot to keep most folks from wadding up their cars. Now, true, in many cases, you can disable them to at least some level where you can get out there and have some fun with the thing. But like I said, I've owned 3 Gen 2 Vipers. I've got hours in those cars on closed circuits. And I can tell you that they are sketch as shit. There were times where I wished I was behind the wheel of a C5 Corvette. So there's that. But yeah, I see what you're talking about. I completely understand your point. Somebody on the B saying, what's your opinion on Jay Green tunes? They're good. I mean, listen, Jay Green's just as good as anybody. I know his customer service is pretty stout. I've run into several of his tunes, and they're aggressive. And I will say that I don't necessarily agree with everything that Jay does, but you know, that's like asking 2 chefs, what's your favorite way to marinate a duck? I mean, you're going to get one answer from me, one answer from somebody else. And, you know, and I'm no pro tuner. I kind of know my way around these things a little bit. I'd like to say, like to think. But the biggest issue here is if you're happy, and listen, Jay can only do as good of a job as you can do with data logging and information sharing. The tough part for Jay is that most of Jay's work is all internet. He's nowhere near the car, and that is really tough to do. I mean, really, really tough to do. especially if you start running into issues with the car, mechanical problems. You can't tune around them. And, you know, pro tip for any of you aspiring tuners out there, if you are going to want to get into tuning and whatnot, and you want to try to apply that trade and make a couple of bucks at it, know when to stop. Know when to tell your client, in this case, know when to tell that person something's wrong with your car, something's wrong with your truck. What I was saying earlier about, look, there are certain things that are known tables that you can change and get a certain result with. If you find yourself with a bunch of short-term knock retard for seemingly no reason, okay, there's a problem. If you find yourself with a car, especially with long tube headers, and it is just adding the hell out of fuel on bank number, left bank, there's an exhaust leak, okay? I've actually had folks say, well, there's nothing wrong with this thing, so-and-so got his money and hauled ass. There's a reason why you called the shop, right? So anyway, if the thing doesn't act right, chances are something's not right with it mechanically. Just know that going into it. And that's the thing that he's trying to work around. And that's the tough part about being Jay. I wouldn't be able to do it. I can't do it. Let's see. Jay's saying, thanks, Pete. Thank you. Dr. Div's saying 10 teens and nope, it's super easy. Absolutely. Nothing special, guys. Nothing special. And again, my tune for my car has to accommodate my needs and what I think is performance, which is another aspect of tuning that we have to talk about. What does performance mean to you? What does it mean to the client? What does it mean to the end user here? For a lot of folks, performance has nothing to do with wide open throttle performance. That wide open throttle performance needs to be reliable, but throttle response, shift points, if it's an automatic transmission, those are the things that typically people are interested in. And again, with the understanding that nowadays cars are really well sorted from the factory. There is, I should say, a dwindling amount of power that you can get out of the engine with just a tune. But the inverse of that is true with transmission tuning. And that's where, again, I kind of gravitated towards, just I thought it was fascinating, tuning something that doesn't run. It is being told what to do, but it's not delivering power, it's just transmitting power. I thought that was just a weird and fun concept, and it's something that is wholly foreign to me as somebody that's old enough to remember carburetor tuning and distributor curve, recurving distributors and things like that. The only thing you did with an automatic back then was torque converter, valve body. I mean, clutches, sure, but you get the idea, right? In this case, you can control everything, so it's actually really cool, and that's where you're going to get the most performance gains. Even though I really haven't done anything with mine either. That's the fun part about it. Shawnee's saying, hey, B, how's everything going? How's everything? Everything's good, man. Thank you. SRT8 Nate saying, what can I do to my 06 SRT8 Charger to keep up with my buddies and their 392s? You can sell it. You get yourself a 392, and it'll save you a bunch of headaches. Now, that's an expensive proposition. It sounds a little bit smart-ass, but just take this with a grain of salt. Your car is not going to be able to compete with it unless you are spending money on it to get it where it needs to be. Would you rather spend that money on a down payment on a new 392 powered contraption with an 8-speed automatic, or do you like your car enough to go ahead and spend it on your current vehicle? That is a question only you can answer. But to answer your question, what can you do? Well, and here's the other thing too with that proposition. Anything that you do to your car will immediately start to remove drivability and daily streetability from that vehicle. So when I suggest a set of 370 gears, those are expensive, like real expensive. And so just know that coming into this. But a tune, if it's an automatic, a tune and a trans tune will get you well on your way, kind of get you started down that path. If you really want to start getting into that same range as those guys, I would say long tubes and a full catback. That'll at least get you in that range. It'll get you real close to a 392. You won't have quite the torque down low, and you won't have quite the horsepower up top, but you'll have this big, just freaking right hook of the best mid-range out of that engine. If you guys are not familiar with 6.1s, 6.1 long tubes cam trans tune, that, and possibly ported throttle body, although it's really not necessary at that power level. That setup in the mid-range is freaking nasty. It's just a fun, real torquey, real snappy combination. Now then, you add a cam to that. Now this is where things really start getting expensive, and bro, you've got to be like married to your car not to get a 392 at this point. But you put a cam into that thing and it will wake it up even more so. And now you're looking at more horsepower than the 392 with an even bigger hit in the mid-range because of that intake manifold. So that's kind of my, the Cliff Notes version of a recipe to get that 6.1 really woken up. Symphonic saying, just did some rinsing on my car past few days, JLT cold air intake, catback exhaust, and a Lund tune. Oh, cool. New tires and 6-speed, new tires with a 6-speed manual. Great driving experience. Yeah, I know A10 GT is faster, but I don't care. And that's the point, man. Don't worry about what's faster. Worry about what's more fun, man. Worry about the experience that you're getting driving that car. And let me tell you something. For all these manufacturers that are doing away with the true manual transmission, that really sucks, because it's no longer really a skill as much as it is an art form nowadays, at least if you go by the consideration of some folks when they start talking about manual transmissions. And the reason why I say that is, it's weird to me. Manual transmissions were a foregone conclusion years and years ago. Everything had a manual transmission because automatics kind of sucked, and manual transmissions were a known entity. Everybody knew how to drive a manual transmission because, again, everything was a manual transmission. If you ever driven a tractor, manual, motorcycle, manual, any kind of farm implement, more or less, PTO, manual clutch disengagement, engagement. I mean, it's all basically the same, right? Not so much anymore. And a lot of folks just don't, especially if you've got like an MGW shifter or a Barton shifter in that car, real solid, real nice, feel to that shifter. That interface is something that I do miss with my Challenger, but just not that much. I miss it, and I'd love to have a manual transmission car, but no, no, not anymore. And I used to make money with a manual transmission car too. Hey, Shawnee, thank you very much for the contribution to the cause, brother. I appreciate that. Let's see. Dr. Diff is saying, talking about stock and tuning. Care to share what we are doing with the stock 5.7? Want to give your thoughts? We'll be on E with head studs. Got it on the stand tonight and then had to pull off of it. So here's the thing, guys, when it comes to 5.7s, this is something that is kind of weird to me, but a lot of the 5.7 guys never really mod their cars. The truck guys do. And of course, Dr. Diff's got his truck, practically a 10-second truck, running, cam boost and whatnot on a freaking 5,500 pound crew cab truck. But here's the thing, the 5.7's actually got a lot of potential, and they're a lot of fun. And don't forget, it wasn't that long ago when a 5.7 liter and 400 horsepower was a lot. I mean, that's LS6 5.7 power. In fact, it's a little bit more if you're talking about the earlier LS6. And technically it is more, or at least identical to it, if you go by SAE J1307 standards. How's that for some nerd for you? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about here. The 5.7 is just overlooked because it is, quite frankly, oh, here we go. The 5.7's overlooked quite a bit, quite frankly, because it's the corporate V8. But in truth, there's a lot of potential in there. So, you know, if you've got a 5.7 and you're looking to get some serious power out of that thing, give Doc Diff a shout. Take a look at the cam packages. Take a look at exhaust packages. Take a look at forced induction packages. I want to put it to you like this. You want to start putting some 6.4s on blast. Have Doc Diff run you down the combination list on his dad's Challenger. It's surprisingly simple by hot rodder standpoints, but the results, the car punches way outside of his weight class. Let me just put it to you that way. But don't sleep on the 5.7. You can still build a very quick car out of a 5.7, or truck for that matter. Let's see. Oh, Doc Div's hanging out with Sambo. Let's see. Modern Red Hemi saying, can you talk about the difference between dyno tuning and street and track tuning? Absolutely, I can. So, dyno tuning, you got to be careful here. I mean, real careful, because you don't want to call every dyno tuning. It needs to be on a load-bearing dyno. And what that means is the tuner has got to be able to load the dyno the same way that you would load the vehicle on a street. But in this case, you're going to load the vehicle on the dyno the same way that you would load an engine on an engine dyno. Now, how do you do that? Well, if you've got a Mustang dyno, let's say I'm doing load testing. I can put the dyno at, say, 3,500 RPM, and I can roll into the throttle, and when the engine, when the pickup, or with the speed sensor reads 3,500 RPM, it starts applying a load. No matter how much power you put to it, assuming the tires hold it, which they normally do, you won't go over 3,500 RPM. And the idea is to put so much load on the vehicle, and you're looking at short-term knock, you're making sure that partial throttle timing setting is right. In other words, that you are putting the car in an abnormal state of load, so that when it's under a normal heavy state of load, you're going to be nowhere near a low-speed spark knock, which is where most tuners, that's where most of the damage is done on engines. It's not at wide open throttle. Wide open throttle is easy, man. Wide open throttle is a piece of cake. Where guys blow their cars up, it's you don't blow it up in one shot. You blow it up over the course of many instances of low-speed spark knock. With a loaded dyno, you can do that. If you're running it on a inertia style dyno, you're not going to be able to load it. An inertia style dyno only knows one thing. It knows how fast your car is accelerating a drum that is a fixed weight. And that's it. It doesn't know how much the vehicle weighs, which a loaded dyno does. It doesn't know drag coefficients, which a loaded dyno does. It can't load the vehicle on any state. In a loaded dyno, it's kind of in the name, right? So those are all extremely important aspects of this. So there's that to consider. That is going to be your best bet, provided that the tuner knows what they're doing. Now then, street tuning. Street tuning is a little bit different, and actually I kind of like street tuning. You can't pick one or the other. This is chocolate and vanilla here. And the reason why I say that is this. Let's say we're talking about street tuning. There are certain things I can do on the street that I simply can't do at the track. I can't get steady state, long-term fuel trims by going to the drag strip. It doesn't work. I mean, I guess I could, but it doesn't really work like that, the drag strip. But the other thing that I can do is I can, on the street, make a pull, gather data, make whatever adjustments that I need to do, and then immediately go back out onto the street and make another hit when I've got all of the temperatures basically back where they need to be, enough airflow has gone in and around the car, everything's basically normalized, okay? Normalize the vehicle, make the hit, normalize it, by the way, to make sure that my data is consistent across the boards, no differences in temperatures is what I'm looking for here. All within the span of 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I can get 5, 6, 8 hits, and I can be doing anything with the car. It could be low speed, high load, could be high speed, high load, anything in between. It could be transitional throttle. There's so much more to it that, you know, the street tuning just allows you that freedom. However, there's one thing that you cannot do on the street, typically, normally. Actually, you're just not going to be able to do this on the street, practically. And that is transmission tuning. Now, you can get your 3/4, 4/5, 5/6 wide open throttle shift points, no problem. But I have to have a prepared surface and a slick or an ET Street R or a really brand new set of drag radials to get my 1, 2, and 2, 3 shift points dialed in. Because let's face it, you try to watt one of these things, it doesn't matter if it's a 5.7, a 6.4, or one of these kitties, you're just going to light the tires up. So that's where you have to have a track. So, and that's the only place that you can do that. So hopefully that answers your questions. Those are the differences in a nutshell between dyno, street tuning, and drag strip tuning. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, favorite Corvette of the last 10 years, naturally aspirated or blower, in what year? C7 Z06. Hands down, still my favorite. I know everybody loves C6. I get it. I love the C6 Grand Sport. But number one on my list is the just poverty pack C7 Z06. 7-speed manual. Call it good. That car feels identical to my ACR, just driving it around. And so much so that I came about that close to buying one. Sambo saying, thanks for the answer. What is the best drop-in air filter for a 6.1 Hemi? Hellcat. Or K&N. K&N's good too. I like K&N. They just don't filter that well. Don't get it green. Whatever you do, don't get it green. Jerry1320 saying, what up, B? Got the arm flex. I like it. What up, man? Ethan saying, a buddy with a 392 cheaped out on a tune and went with some local in San Antonio. Turns out his lifters and other things failed a week or so after tuning. Any chances tuner is responsible? Maybe. Okay, the reason why I say maybe is this. If that okay, look, first of all, the tuner would have had to have a serious case of the dumb shits, because he would have had to push that engine to like 66, 6,800 RPM. And even then, I don't think it would have failed, but that car would have to spend a lot of time at high RPM. And even then, that's not going to necessarily designate a failure. The problem here is that some 6.4s did suffer lifter failures. We had a Jeep at the shop sitting there idling. Lifter failed. This kind of stuff happens, man. And I don't think that the tuner, there's nothing in the tune aside from rev limits that would have been any different in terms of wear on those lifters. So there's that to consider. I don't think so, and it would be tough for me to agree that the tuner could have hurt it. Only because of my experience with lifter failures in 5.7s and 6.4s. Much less in 6.4s, by the way, than in 5.7s. Let's see. Sambo saying, oh, at Doc, I'll pass. Dyno tunes aren't that great and aren't real world conditions. Way too expensive as well. Jay has done a good job for me. Let's see. Yeah, Monterey Hemi saying he's also used Jay and has had no problems. Yeah, as many can attest to that. Let's see. Pot saying, is it worth it to tune the 392 and void the warranty? I just purchased a 2020 Challenger Scat Pack a few weeks ago. Man, that's tough to say. Is it worth it? Here's what I'm going to tell you. Drive the car around the way that you got it now and wait at least one full calendar year. Get used to the car, play with the car a little bit, get an idea for how the car feels, really get an overall strong sense of the way that that vehicle is going to perform in all conditions, cold, hot, spring and fall, all of that. Get an idea for what the car is going to act like. If you still feel the need to tune the car after that, drive it for another 6 months, but start saving your money at that point. Don't immediately jump into the pool. Save, and I just say 6 months because that's about how long it took me to start saving up at that time. So get your 6 months war chest together and tune the car. I would have at least a few grand in a bank account just in case something sketchy happens. But in terms of warranty, but here's the thing, that warranty is extremely valuable. And I don't, if the question is, should I tune this car? It's a brand new car. Is it worth it? My initial response is no, it's not worth it because it's not worth more than the warranty is. Now, if the warranty runs out, I mean, do whatever you want with it. If you picked one up on the used market, you don't have that much of an investment by comparison in that vehicle. I say go for it. But you've got a brand new car. Let's get you some miles underneath you first. Have some fun with it. You may discover that you don't need to get it tuned. And I'll tell you something else. The newer operating systems with the different cam tuning and cam timing makes those cars a little bit livelier. And I would say that, yeah, you're going to get a little bit out of a tune, but they're better. The tunes are better in the cars now than they were in 15 and 16. Scott Speed, what up, B-Mason? What's up, Scott? Shawnee's saying, we used to have to put a shift kit in our old school transmissions. Oh, how tune does the exact same thing. Pretty much, yeah. The results are the same for sure. Christopher's saying, just got the wife a 12 Yellow Jacket. It's a fun car. Was thinking of doing an SLP loudmouth exhaust Corsa cold air intake, buck 80 thermostat, and a tune. She said I can take the car to the track every now and then. Hey, I like it. Just get some tires for it. But that'll be a fun package. And that 180 thermostat is important. Roger's asking, what's more fun as a daily driver, SRT 392 or Hellcat? SRT 392 every single time. For a couple of reasons. One, SRT 392 is real snappy. The throttle response is better with a 392. It's a bigger engine, higher compression. When you're not in boost, Hellcat's kind of a pussycat. I mean, just like any other car with boost. I mean, it's just not there. It's a low compression, small block, you know, without the blower. So, yeah, 392, hands down, more fun, in my experience. Christopher's asking, also read that the 11 to 14 392 has valve float problem. Haven't heard of that. Not at all. If true, what would you suggest if I took it to the track? Can't blow up the wife's car. I haven't heard of valve float issues on the 11 to 14. Some of the older earlier 345 cubic inch, basically, is what I'm getting at here. 5.7s had issues with valve seats, but you're outside of the range of that. So, and I'm not aware of any difference with the spring pack. So, no real issue with valve float on that unless you're just trying to spin the living hell out of it. I think you'll be just fine. I don't think you're going to have any problems with it. Slash was saying, I see there are a lot of Race Star Dark Stars for front runners on Hellcats. Yep. Do you know any lighter ones that will fit? All of them that fit are lighter than Dark Stars. How about ultra lightweight race seat that will fit the Charger? Kirk, fucking mosquitoes. Here we go again with that, right? Send that thing right back to hell where it came from. Y'all know the routine. Anyway, Kirksey, whatever it is, that's a seat that works. You can also get a cloth seat out of an SXT or something like that. It's very lightweight, a lot more comfortable, and you can use those rails and it bolts right in. So it's the same seats that the Demons use. It's just the, get that sumbitch. If I start throwing hands on this mosquito, don't make fun of me. It's driving me nuts. Or make fun of me. I would actually make fun of me myself. And now when it comes to wheels, look, here's the thing. I like the Dark Stars because they're a robust wheel. They're pretty stout. I've hit potholes with my Dark Stars. Didn't really phase them. I've pretty much beat up my Dark Stars at this point. And aside from the powder coating chipping away, where I take off and put on the lug nuts, the washers coming out of there, I haven't really had any. There's no real issues with the finish. Yeah, they're pretty heavy, but they're also pretty robust. The only front runner that's heavier than Dark Stars are maybe the Demon runners are pretty heavy. Those things are pretty heavy too. But if you're looking for something that is gonna work, that's gonna be lighter, I mean, you'd have to go and look at Bogart's, look at actual weld wheels. The problem is you start looking at the cost of those things and it's obnoxious. So, Dark Stars, good for the price. They work great, and realistically, I really wouldn't run anything different in these cars because just the simple fact these cars are so heavy. You can get away with running something like a weld, on a lightweight car, like a Fox body or an F body or something like that. But you start looking at something that has got a race weight of 4,400 pounds. Yeah, you're going to want something that's got a little bit more heft to it, and kind of comes with the territory, man. It's kind of where we're at with these things nowadays. Dr. Div saying any dyno tune should be backed up with street tuning. Usually we street tune it and then get them to a loaded dyno to dial them in. Double check and dial the trans on the track. Absolutely. Low Wolf saying, hey B, what's up, man? Dr. Div saying, voided my warranty on the Ram at 6,000 miles. 4 months later with the tune and 100 shot. Went crazy from there. My wife works for Chrysler and it's been labeled a heavily modified no warranty vehicle. That's funny. He is his warranty. I know the feeling. Scatsby saying, you said the tunes for the 392s are better now than 15, 16. What's the difference? Cam timing is the difference. And it's something that I ran into, not really because I wanted to. I had, when I blew the transmission up in the SRT, I had to marry the old TCM with the new TCM, and the guy that did it actually just loaded the new operating system from 2019, I think it's what it was, the latest operating system. He loaded that into the car, and when I started looking at the cam timing events, I noticed that the cam timing was actually more advanced in that operating system at lower RPM, and it was about the same at peak RPM, but you could see where there were some differences in the cam timing, and just made the car a little bit snappier with the stock tune, especially at partial throttle. That car kind of woke up a little bit with the new operating system at partial throttle. Trackpack RT is saying, hey B Mason, good to see you, man. Hey, good seeing you. Hey, been meaning to ask you, did you notice a big difference in wheel hop when you put those BMR lower trailing arms in your old 392? I noticed a little bit. I wouldn't say that I noticed a lot, but it did help some. And again, the only reason why I don't have a set on this car is I really haven't gotten around to it. They're a good piece. It's a urethane bushing. Like I say, it helped a little bit, but it didn't make the problem go away entirely. But a lot of that problem going away entirely had to do with basically just having the right tire on the back of the car and having that tire at the right pressure. That was more, or that meant more than anything. And that was basically just running a, well, I put the replicas on the car, with the 305 35s and had them aired up to, I think it was 30 psi. And at that point, the temperature was like 68 degrees when I put those on. So to give you an idea as far as temperature and all of that. So there you go. That was the setup, and that's what really helped. So the BMRs and having the right tire on the back of the car at the right pressure. Shawty saying, any updates on the lightweight batteries? What are your top 2 choices? Man, so I don't have anything back from Archangel yet. I don't know what's his face. Can't remember. Not Chris. Is it Chris? Anyway, I don't know what the deal is over there. And mine's working great. I love my battery, and knock on wood. Yeah, no, it's great. The other one, I can't remember the name off. There's a few of the other ones out there, and they just range in size. It's just it's a lithium ion or lithium polymer, lithium ferrous. It's all some lithium derived cell technology. With mine being a lithium ferrous, which is really a killer way to go about it. You just charge them and discharge them, charge them and discharge them over and over and over and over and over again. And that's really where most of those batteries are going. Now the small high discharge, well, they're all high discharge if they're lithium, but they've got LiPo batteries in some cases, which is lithium polymer, which is, if you guys are into RC cars, you'll know all there is to know about LiPo batteries and why they're not necessarily the best thing to have in a car or a truck, because they don't take really well, or they do, but they don't take well to being bounced around. And when you start to see them get puffy, that means that they're starting to fail. And if you have a runaway LiPo situation, they basically explode. It's spectacular. It looks like fireworks are going off. It's not a good thing. Lithium ferrous, lithium polymer, big difference in terms of durability and safety, by the way. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, I put lower control arms in his 392 manual. It helped a little. Good traction is the key, however, as well as a diff brakes. I'll agree with that. Dr. Doe saying, you know what I'm saying. I hear you, brother. HE37 saying, is there that much to be gained with just a tune on a 392? Mopar doesn't leave much on the table. If I wanted to tune a new 392, I'd save my money for other mods that you wanted first, saying that Ford seems to leave quite a bit on the table compared to Mopar. The first mod I did on my Ford was a tune, and I gained about 0.4 of a second at the drag strip. Here's the funny thing. So my 392, my 392 on a tire was maybe a 12.0 car with 12.0 1190s with some tuning, primarily trans tuning. It was brought down to about 11.8, 11.7. So the car legitimately picked up 3 to 4 there, but it had nothing to do with horsepower. Here's the other funny thing about the Mopar, especially when we're talking about the 392s. Let's say you pick up 10 horsepower with a 392. I swear it's like you pick up Clydesdales. The cars just run, it never shows up on the dyno with the Mopar. It just doesn't. But I take that thing to the drag strip and not really expect the car to perform in any way, shape, or form. Just, let's just go out and have fun. And sure enough, man, I mean, the car started running 1170s, 1160s, 1150s, and I mean, it just kept getting quicker and quicker and quicker, and I really wasn't doing anything to the car. I was just, riding Mother Nature on DA, but I started making some changes to the transmission tune, and that's when it went 1140s, and then it got into the 1130s, and this was in full weight trim. This was with the 20-inch wheels. The only thing it had was the Mopar rear seat delete, and that was basically it. Other than that, it was an SRT, about as heavy as you can get for a 392. So, it's a lot of the gains that you're going to get nowadays are going to come from transmission tuning. So, and it's tough to drag. The thing is, it's tough to drag more power out of these cars when they're already so well optimized from the factory. Shawnee's saying, I got a little bit of power out of a tune on my 392, however, it's $100 a horsepower, so save up your pennies and keep your expectations realistic. Absolutely. Demonology checking in. What is happening, my man? Everybody say what's up to Demonology. Hope everything's going well for you, my friend. SRT8 is saying, does a lifter failure mean a new motor? No, not necessarily, but it does mean a new set of lifters. Probably means a new camshaft. They'll flush the engine, but typically it doesn't mean a new motor. I didn't have to get a new engine in my truck. But I'll tell you this, it only means not a new engine if you get it fixed like right now. Like right now you get it fixed. The second you find out there's a problem, you get that thing to the dealership now. If you wait, the longer you wait, the worse it's going to get. And you don't want to get down there and go, and don't have this mentality, because it may backfire on you. If you say, oh yeah, it's been making noise for a long time and I haven't had a chance to bring it in, but oh, the engine, it started smoking like crazy and all this other, I need a new engine under warranty. Believe me when I tell you, they're going to try to find a way to weasel out of that. So if you get the thing in there early, get the new thing, get the new cam, get the new lifter, get whatever you need to get done, and get it knocked out as soon as you can. Please don't try to make a headache for yourself. Jay Blevin saying, is the 180 thermostat a must-do on a 5.7? Yes. Yeah. If it is, why? Now, this is first Hemi, so I'm new to the game. So here's the thing. Along with the tune, let me just say this. Again, along with the tune, you're talking about tuning. There are parameters in your tune. It's basically, they're called spark modifiers. And in the Hemis, you have a spark modifier for engine coolant temperature, and it starts at 212 degrees. Well, it's not too far away from where the car runs at anyway. And at 212 degrees, it's going to start slowly pulling timing out of your base map and out of your wide open throttle maps. The idea is to keep that thing running cool, and a 180 degree thermostat keeps the engine out of that range, and so it allows you to hang on to power that you would otherwise lose due to the spark modifier taking the power away. That is to mean that the 180 thermostat does not get you power, it only helps you retain the power that you would be losing. The tune is necessary to run the fans so that when the car is stationary, your fans are on and drawing air through the radiator so that you keep the car cooled down to roughly what will really end up being about 185 degrees. Same difference here. So to answer the question, is it necessary? I feel like it is, but only when it's along with the tune. And the reason is it helps you to hang on to power. Not necessarily gain you power, but it will help you to hang on to power. Sambo's checking in with Jay. Yes, do it and then get your fans adjusted as well. Absolutely. Dr. saying, at Demonology, what's up, man? Ethan Hack saying, what's the deal with high RPM clutch lockout on MT82 on the stock Coyotes? Here's what I would check on that. I'm not sure. Do they have a clutch delay valve the same way that the Mopars do? I think they do. Check on that. Look up clutch delay valve. And what it is it's this, how can I illustrate it? Okay, so obviously imagine a length of hose, right? You're looking dead on to this length of hose. There is this little piece of plastic that would fit into that clutch line, and it's a reduction. And what that does is it meters, so to speak, limits is a better term, I think, the amount of fluid flow and amount, not pressure, but flow into the throw-out bearing. That might be something that's causing that. I'm not sure about that precisely for the Fords, but I can tell you that on the Hellcats and, well, anything with a manual transmission, that clutch delay valve, you need to pull it out. And it's easy to do. You just take basically a wall screw about that long. When you unplug the clutch line from the throttle bearing to the transmission, you basically go in through the throttle bearing side. Dr. Diff, you can correct me if I start screwing this up. It's been a while since I messed with it. Basically run the screw in there, just kind of poke around there until you feel it stop. Turn it a few times, and then you should be able to pull that little delay valve. It's a little blue piece of plastic on the Mopars. And again, it looks like a, kind of looks like a star with a hole in the middle. Let's see. Arthur Wallace saying, B Mason, get in and got the arm flex. I like it. Saying, do you think adding lowering springs to a rear-wheel drive car will hinder launch and acceleration due to higher spring rates and reduction of weight transfer? By the way, I don't have 707 horsepower. Okay, so here's the thing. For your application, probably not. But here's my thing. Anytime you get one of these cars, anything, Mustang, Camaro, Vette, any of the L bodies, which would be the Mopars, anytime you start messing with these things, you have got to get a four-wheel alignment. I cannot possibly stress that enough. If you get the four-wheel, because it's a independent rear suspension car, obviously you would want to get the front aligned, but you've got to get a four-wheel on these things. The problem is it's not like an old Mustang or anything, like a truck, where you lower it and the frame just comes down on it. So like my hands are the wheels, right? The wheels in this case on your L body are going to pivot up when you lower the car. The problem is that you lose contact patch. So now when the car launches, they'll pivot even more. You lose even more contact patch. You know, you might have a set of 305s on the back. You got the contact patch of like a set of 185s. Not good. So you are always going to have that pivot. What you want to do is just bring everything back into factory specs. That's the main thing that you're looking to do here. Let's see. And as far as hurting weight transfer and stuff like that, I've launched the hell out of lowered cars in the past. I don't think you're going to have a problem with it. It doesn't help it, but look, man, if you're just out there having fun, I really wouldn't worry about it too much. Arthur Wall saying, sub demonology. Sambo and the B saying, Hellcat air filter doesn't fit the 6.1, different shape. What's better between K&N and the drop-in, the drop-in filters? Actually, well, we ran the different air boxes on them, the different thing. My bad. I was thinking ahead there. I like the K&N. The K&N flows pretty well. I just don't like the green filters because there's really no substance to them. They're both basically the same body more than anything else. It's just that when you look at the green filter, I mean, it's, excuse me, you can basically just look right through it. They don't really filter that well. So, you know, if the question is, does it flow better? At this point, flow really isn't what you're looking for because they all will outflow what the engine demand is. So, if you're not going to run a modified setup and run the Hellcat airbox and run the ducting over, then leave the stock system in place, get you a K&N drop-in, and you will be perfect in that respect. AFE, wait a minute. Oh, the AFE, yeah, that's, AFE sucks. No, K&N for sure. AFE, the problem with AFE is, I say they suck. Let me personal opinion. Let me just recant that for just a second and say this. If you get the dry filter, the one that you don't oil, does not flow very well. I ended up throwing one of those away with my 392. The car didn't like it. And you could see it in the KPA. It was in the data. The car just was not getting the airflow. Let's see. Slash was asking, do you know why when I come to a stop at a light or something, my 18 scats RPMs drop way down like it wants to die sometimes? I almost wonder if that's the 2-to-1 downshift glitch. Well, no, typically, it'll hang on to 2 and then just before you come to a stop, it'll downshift into first gear. That might be what it is, but you've got an 18, so I don't think that would be the case with your car. Without remembering off the top of my head, there's nothing in the tune that would necessarily allow for that. So, depending on what you've got done to your car, remind me what you got done to your car. I might be able to unpack that a little bit better for you. But there's nothing in the tune specifically that would do that, with the exception of an old kind of a glitch in the matrix with the trans tune. In fact, my old truck had that. And the car to a lesser extent. I actually tuned it out of the car. Dr. Dip is saying 5.7 needs a 180 thermostat or a mile down 160. The cooler I can get it consistently, the more timing I can run. Absolutely you can. Ethan Hack saying the MT82 and its stock clutch issues on the manual transmission is literally the only downfall of getting a Coyote. And Rip is saying, damn, I missed most. Nah, you're good, brother. Back into tuning though. Dive back into that, try to reel this in a little bit. The funny thing is, and I'll for you guys that were just now getting in, I was playing around with the tune with Revlon, and the funny thing is that I put together a tune that is more or less known values for these cars, and my car didn't like it. It slowed down, and it well, for lack of a better way of putting it, it just hated the tune. Ran into some short-term knock. In fact, here's the weird thing about it. I ran a little bit more fuel, actually a chunk more fuel, if I'm being honest, and a little bit more timing. And the car on one of the passes was just going, no, not feeling it. Pulled 2 degrees of timing on short-term knock retard. Now, let me put that into perspective. Normally, you'll see that with a stock Hellcat. You'll see 2, 3, 4, whatever. You don't even bother looking at them because the knock sensor sensitivity is set to, freak out mode. Just anything will freak them out. And anyway, long story short, it didn't like it at all. And so what I ended up doing is, when I put it back to the original tune, I was just sitting there looking at it going, realistically, this is a fuel quality issue. This isn't a tune issue. But my tune, my original tune, didn't have a problem with fuel quality. A little bit less fuel in the tune, also a little bit less timing, but not by much. We're only talking about maybe half a degree to 1 degree here in varying spots, kind of scattered throughout the entire table. But it didn't like the extra fuel, and it didn't like the extra timing. And again, so what I didn't get a chance to get to, what was the difference in time, right? So again, to bring you guys up to speed, this isn't on a dyno, this isn't on a track. This is street tuning in Mexico. Viva. So the car in fairly good air on the power pull, which starts at 60 miles an hour, goes to watt, and then the timestamp starts at 70, and I'll time it to 130. The timestamp in good air is about 6.5 seconds. In the air that we've got now, the car with my tune went 6.67 seconds on that 70 to 130 pull. But keep in mind, it's not a hit. I'm coming through 70. So it's like sampling on a dyno. With the tune that should have made more power on a pass where it was actually pretty clean, it went, instead of 6.67, it went 6.73. Now I know that's nitpicking, but here's the funny thing. It was as repeatable as an atomic clock. I mean, it was within a couple of thousandths every single time I would hit it on every single pull. So I am confident that the tune that I have is better. And even on the clean pulls with extra fuel and extra timing, it still wasn't besting my tune when it was just kind of going through the motions. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And not only was it repeatable, but it was eye-opening as well. It's number one, a fuel quality issue, so there's that to consider. If the car would have had race gas, butane, or some other, magical, gas tank juice, it probably would have done maybe a little bit better. If I was running on straight 100 octane, it would probably not have seen any of that short-term knock retard. But that's the point of it here. See, I'm not tuning my car on race gas. I'm not tuning my car on a race gas blend. I'm not messing with any butane or Torco. I'm tuning it to run on 93 octane, and it has to be able to accommodate any 93 octane that I run across. I can't be mad scientist, bust out the lab coat and the goggles, get all beaker on this thing, and then, okay, now we can go drive the car. Hell no. Listen, and if I want to get that nutty with it, I can. But the reality is that this is a convenience factor, and this is a my reality factor. And this is what I want to bring next in the conversation of tuning. Know what your reality is. For example, my reality is I'm not going to tune on E85 because it's simply not convenient for me, not for what I do with my car. I mean, not only do I social distance away from Corvettes, Camaros, and Mustangs with this thing, set national records and basically make people think that I'm hitting it with the 75 shot, which I've been accused of a few times. And aside from making Mopar just look damn good, I love going on road trips with my car, and an E85 tune just simply doesn't fit into the ethos of convenience when it comes to that. But for you out there, if you're thinking about getting the car tuned and you've seen cars like mine out there and how they run, or you've seen other cars which are faster than my car, which are tuned on E85 or race gas, which is easily done, by the way. This car is a 9-second car if I tune it on race gas. But I got to have the air to do it. Know that there are certain things that are going to keep you from being able to get to those results. So those are outlier results. My car is an outlier in many respects. And I spend a lot of time with it. I spend a lot of time tinkering over tunes and looking at data logs, the most boring things in the world. I get it. But all that time that I spent in math class, now it's finally paying off. So the idea here is to set a goal that's realistic, and know what you're going to be doing with your vehicle. If you don't have a game plan and you don't follow the game plan, you're going to end up buzzing off, and you're going to end up basically standing there wondering what happened. And this is basically how it works. Guys will get their cars and go, man, here's the thing. I want to go tune, I'm going to go pulley, and I'm going to go nines. Awesome. Perfect. They get a tune, and then nothing. And then they go somewhere else and get a pulley. And then they go, and they probably lift the tune while they're there too. And then they go somewhere else and they get something else done to the car. And next thing you know, they've gone pretty much everywhere, and they've which is great, and spread the wealth, whatever. But the result is never going to be 100% what they want when they have that approach to it, number one. And number two, realistically, you wind up with this kind of cobbled together combination. And the reason for that, it's kind of a long way to get to a point. Everywhere that person went, that person was told that you could get something else done to your car. You can go this much faster. You can go this much quicker. You can do this, that, this, that, this, that. And you get too many people in your ear, and then you start to take that advice and you get convinced that what you're doing is a smart thing. All you're doing is spending a bunch of money. Let me put it to you like this. This is how simple of a combination my car is. Let me tell you what it doesn't have. All right, this is a whole lot easier to do. It does not have ported throttle body. It does not have cold air intake. It does not have catch can, or catch cans for that matter. That should tell you something right there. It has the stock catalytic converters. It has basically the stock exhaust, although I did 86 the rear resonators. Probably the smartest thing I've done to the car. I just love the way it sounds now. So there's that to consider, aside from a little bit of weight reduction, which is taking out the rear seat and putting in the Mopar rear seat delete and a 309 gear. It doesn't get any more simple than that. And the reality here is, no matter what you do, just please make sure that you are doing this for you also. A lot of guys get wrapped up in the tuning and the modifications and everything else, and they're modifying their cars and spending money that they don't have to impress people that they don't know. Guys, I've been in and around this stuff since I was a fetus, and I just don't know any different. But to other guys, you know, they come into this at some point and they want to, you know, they want to get into this, but they don't have any background behind it. They don't speak car, and so shops can kind of steer you in the wrong direction. The other thing with tuning is do your research, I guess, is the main point that I'm trying to get to. And I've said this over and over and over again, so much so that I'm tired of hearing myself say it, but it's something that bears repeating. Make sure that you take your car or your truck to somebody that speaks fluent Mopar. If you don't, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for, number one, and number two, probably more to the point, you're putting yourself at risk, putting your vehicle at risk. You don't want to be the guy that is the beta test for somebody with their Mopar tuning. Trust me on that. But again, you know, getting back to what works and what doesn't work for different vehicles, again, the tune that I put on the car really was kind of known values on 93 octane. It just should have worked. And in reality, it didn't. And again, this is why you have to have custom tune, street validated dyno tunes. That is the only way to get these cars to run right. And also keep in mind, these things are heavy, real heavy. And in tuning, you have to take into account not just what a dyno reads, but that street tuning. What is the big difference between the street tuning and a dyno tune? Wind resistance, high load, high speed conditions. When the vehicle is in basically what we call pulling a gear, when that vehicle is pulling a gear at high RPM with a lot of wind resistance, that is going to put an exceptional amount of load on the engine. Basically what happens is you are spending a lot more time with that piston under peak cylinder pressure. It is the delta, the change between going from, say, 5th gear to 6th gear that can cause problems, or 6th gear to 7th gear for you guys that are really legging them out. These are areas where you have to be able to have the car at speed so that you are under full load at full timeline. That's the other thing. When you are doing those types of tests, that's when you can ensure the safest tune possible. Because at the end of the day, which I hate that phrase, but when it's all said and done, how about that for a cliche? Drag one blast from the past. It's the safety of the tune, the reliability of the tune, the robustness of the tune that makes all the difference. The idea is to have a tune that only a mechanical design engineer could love, and only an OS engineer could love. Because the reality of making more power on top of more power is that you start to find weak links, and could be the drive shaft, could be the transmission, or it could be that rod, or in the case of 6.4s where you've got maybe a little bit tighter ring gap than you've got in other vehicles, maybe you run a little bit hotter cylinder temperature, and maybe that's not a big deal for a while. That is until somebody decides they want to leg the thing out back to back and you end up pinching a ring. And that's how you get to buy yourself a brand new engine. So there are things to consider throughout all of this. And as somebody who's been in and around this, and to be honest with you, was, you know, the little that I know is taught to me by one of, if not the best in the industry, Alex Pikes. With my time working, you know, nights, weekends, you know, 60 hours a week up at the shop, you pick up a thing or two here and there, and you learn what works and you get to see what doesn't work. And every shop will tell you this. And I mean, every shop will tell you this. But one of the things that you do get to see and one of the biggest learning experiences are from what other shops have done that absolutely didn't work. And there have been times when vehicles would show up with tunes that, I mean, it was like trying to untie a knot. You just go, good God. I'll put it to like this. We had this pompous prick too. I mean, I don't typically talk shit about. Anyway, Charger owner had taken his car somewhere else, and I'll put it like this: in the tune, the knock sensors were, and for any of you guys that are into tuning, and you'll know exactly why this is a real cringy thing. Knock sensors were set to 3.5 volts across the field on everything. Let me tell you what the car had. The car had an ATI 10% lower, Metco 275 upper, and ID 1000 fuel injectors on the 85 with a booster pump. Any reason why those knock sensors were set to 3.5 volts? Yeah. So when you see stuff like that, that's a mechanical thing on top of a mechanical thing on top of an electronic tuning thing on top of an electronic Band-Aid. The fuck? But this is the type of stuff that we would see. And again, to that point, first of all, that's not the only, what the hell is this shit? In fact, I was, when Alex goes, hey, you're not going to believe this, and he said it to me, I literally, it was like a laugh or a sneeze. I just, what the fuck? It just came out, you know? I saw the look on his face. I asked him what was going on. He told me. Unfortunately, the customer was standing right there. Anyway, that's not the only bad, but it was, I guess the point I'm trying to get to is that was one of the catalysts in me starting to look for Hellcats, because I had seen Hellcats go through hell that no Mustang had gone through, no LS had gone through, and survived. I mean, maybe a built, like pistons and rods LS, but at that point it's really not an LS anymore. Stock Hellcat is robust to a fault, especially when you start to look at the weight that it's dragging around and the performance that it's putting out just in factory form. So some interesting things to consider there, I know, but anyway, some stuff that you see when you're in and around this stuff for any real length of time. You always see, the stuff that never happens about once a month, and then it goes from there. So it's enough to make you a hypochondriac. Anyway, sorry, getting back around to it. Catalyst99 saying, weight transfer on launches. Why does a gasser point up in the air as opposed to down? The reason why it's pointed straight up in the air, basically, is that it's putting that weight on the rear tire. Think of it like, just like with anything. If you pick up one end of it, the weight is now transferred to the back, and that's the reason why you do that. They ran a solid front axle because that's how you lifted the front car. You would just put leaf springs underneath it, push that, get a solid front axle. Typically a modified truck axle or modified sedan axle, and just get that axle away from the car, get it up in the air, and put a stiff spring on the back of it. And the idea was you'd launch it and it would only kind of rock back a little bit, but with anything that would have been softer, it had pulled the front tires and you wouldn't have any actual control, because the steering increment on those things is just completely jacked with those front ends. But camber it is also, in some cases, a little bit too aggressive with those setups. So they have a tendency to be real darty. But anyway, that's the reason why. It's specifically for weight transfer, and it's just kind of the car's already loaded on the rear end. Before the car even launches, it's already loaded on the rear end. And that's their solution to weight transfer. Johnny's saying, good night, B. Favorite 2014 and earlier Challenger, a 6.1 car or a 6.4 car? Excellent info. Good night, everybody. Good seeing you. Man, I tell you what, I am still hopelessly in love with two different cars. Both of them manual, 161, black with the gray stripes lowered on CCW wheels. Still in love with that car, and I'm still in love with the 2013 6.4 6-speed car that we did the supercharger on. And that car in stock form and with the supercharger, I mean, car picked up about 140 horsepower to the rear wheels. So, you know, but it's a centrifugal supercharger, so it's not like it's, rising boost curve and all. But that car was a lot of fun. I really can't pick between the two. The 6.4, I guess it was faster, but the 6.1 with that just big meatball of torque right there in the middle of the power band is just so tasty, man. I mean, you don't want to pick between your kids, right? And that's kind of the way I felt with those two cars. Like, which one's better? It's like, I mean, and this gets back into the argument about fast versus fun. This gets into the driving experience being lost in favor of a number, maybe. You know, that 6.1 is just a more raw feel of a car. But anyway, getting off topic, but yeah, I liked them both. Riff checking in saying, hope all is well. I got the two arms. I like it. Slash was saying, completely stock, only Hellcat lower box and filter. That's a good way to roll, man. That's the way this thing was for a long time. And obviously, it's got a Hellcat lower and filter, but you know what I mean. Still has the stock. That's the other thing. I did run, all those numbers that I've run have been with the air filter in the air box. And it's a paper filter. And it's the stock filter. Actually, no, I take it back. It is the Mala replacement that I get through Amazon because I don't feel like spending $50 through Mopar. It's the same filter. Let's see. Arthur Wall saying, B. Mason, what do you think about Steve Saline's attempt at the Challenger from 09 to 14? The 570 with the 570X with 700 horsepower. It was a 6.7 liter based on the 5.7. It was expensive and sort of tacky looking grill. You know, that was kind of a short-lived thing, and unfortunately, that company, when Steve sold out, they tried a few things that just didn't really quite hit the mark. But yeah, Steve had his. There was one other one. What was the name of it? It was earlier on. Man, yeah, Steve, I'm not talking about Petty Garage. It's the other one that was sold through Dodge dealership. I cannot remember it to save my life right now. Anyway, I know exactly what you're talking about. Good attempt. I mean, it was a good enough from an engineering standpoint, but really not my cup of tea. It just never really caught on. Let's see. Now we're saying all good, Shawnee. Oh, Sean's saying track closed because of the CD19. It caused me to miss some pretty good air. He's saying I'm a little salty. I bought my Hellcat for the drag strip. Absolutely, man. I'm sorry to hear about that, brother. Dr. was saying, I'm thinking idle it up a bit. Maybe it's dipping too early. It's possible. It just depends on what else done to the car. That's the thing. I wouldn't want to idle it up for no reason, but shit. No, the things that I'm thinking of would actually cause it to try this. Kind of a dumb thing here. Clean the throttle body, maybe? I mean, it could have some little stiction thing happen if it's going shut for DFCO and it's having a problem kicking open. What do you think about that, Doc? If you get some stiction in there, the carbon blow by, because, in this case, maybe be catch can woodwork. But throttle blade just goes back to default, basically default idle setting, and then injectors shut off for DFCO. But when that turns off, is there something the throttle's doing? It's hanging up. I mean, the only thing I can think of, but even then you should get a throttle fault code at that point. I don't know, man. I'm still drawing a blank, especially if it's a stock car, closer to stock. Let's see. Rift is saying, Racer X has me thinking that I might want to go E85 for the power level. His car held up very well, and I'm sure E85 had a lot to do with that. Well, sort of. All right. He's got good quality E85 that he's able to get. That's a big part of that. But the biggest part of that is in that tune. I am intimately aware of the parameters of that tune, and it is safe, it is very powerful, and it is proven to be extremely robust even in heavy load conditions. That tune is just sweet as a nut. So to be honest with you, there is more in that tune, but at only, and I mean only, at the expense of durability and potential issues. Again, very safe tune, run on very good quality E85. About as good as you can get pumping it out of the ground. I'll put it to you that way. Let's see. But yeah, E85 had everything to do with being able to put that tune together, though, because without the qualities of E85, that car doesn't run like that. And that's including race gas, too, by the way. SRT8 mate saying, too late for me on the lifter failure. Back when I first got my 06 SRT8, I put Diablo tuner on it and not knowing what I was doing and turned the rev limiter up to $7,000. Ooh. Long story short, I now have a new 2010 block in my car. Ouch. Yeah, that stings, buddy. I'm sorry to hear that. Rift33 is saying, I found a really good shop close to me that can help build my car finally. I didn't think we had one around here. That's good, man. Support local, brother. Dr. Div saying, E85, good injectors and a ported lower snout, which you can do in a day. Boost it, throw boost at it, and you've got an ice tank. And let her rip. Yeah, I mean, there's some things you can definitely do to gain track performance, and that combination right there is a known entity. Also, if you're into the killer chillers, those work pretty well. Not a big fan of the inner chiller, but the Kincaid killer chiller, just the basic kit's actually pretty good. I don't know that it helps a ton, but it does help on the bigger boost cars. On something like mine, it wouldn't really do me good. SRT8 saying, I was tripping. Brings new meaning to learning the hard way. I know everything I've ever learned, I've learned the hard way, so I'm right there with you. Let's see, got a few of them. Looks like he was trying to say something that said, oh, forget about it. Arthur Wall saying, Rip, you got a 6.1 centrifugal supercharged, right? He said, yep, and a cat. Got the thumbs up. Rip saying, I would probably stay NA if I had a 6.4 and just go with a cam and some headers. Arthur Wall saying, vital information from Brother Mason. Think you got the arm flex and the bald guy with the shades. I like it. Rip's asking, am I thinking about getting an intake? So here's the thing. If I do get an intake, it will only be for the theater of the intake. In the tune, I have seen absolutely no difference in KPA at this boost level. The higher the boost level, the more that you may, and by the way, KPA is just a fart sniffing tuner way of saying boost. Okay, so I haven't seen any increase in boost. I haven't seen any increase in power. I haven't seen any increase in track time. I haven't seen any tangible benefit to going with an intake in terms of picking up ET. There is some anecdotal evidence that you could maybe pick up something in terms of mile an hour with it. But again, I just don't see a difference in KPA, and I don't buy it, not unless I've got the data in my hand that shows me different. If I do it, it's only going to be for the noise, the theater, the sound of it. Without that, To me, and a little bit of the eye candy too. And if I did get one, I'd just go leg maker. I'd bypass everything, not worry about anything other than going with the leg maker because I know it's going to be loud as hell. And that's the only thing that I'm looking for with that setup. I'd either go leg maker, a close second would be the JLT. I would just want something that is loud, and all I want to do is hear the blower whine. So that is what I would do. And just go around and go, yip, yip, yip. Everywhere I go, I'd just be yipping that thing all over the place. Let's see. TU saying, what I missed, bro? Are you tuning Revlon? So, good chance to recap. Thank you, TU. Appreciate the heads up, the reset button. So here's the thing, brother. I was doing, what I did is I took Revlon, because we're all bored to tears, right? And I modified the tune a little bit. And what I did is I threw some fuel at it, threw some timing at it, within some kind of known parameters. You know, parameters that you know that on a dyno pickup, honestly, it should have picked up about 10 horsepower or so, maybe 15. It'd be tough to really call much more than that. And really 15 is a little bit optimistic. But the point is, and doing power sweeps with the car, much the same way that you almost basically using the road as a dyno. And come to find out, the car got slower when I went and changed the tune. I put the tune back to what it was, and the car got a little bit quicker, basically regained what it had lost by going with that other tune. And again, it wasn't by much. That the timestamp was running it, make the hit at 60, start the timestamp at 70, run the car out through the back of 5th gear into 6th, let it make the shift, but kill the timestamp at 130 miles an hour. Basically, a very clean sample that would give me an RPM band all the way through one shift, high load shift point, and then all the way through basically to 130. And that's the change that I made, was just more or less in those areas, basically in the high load areas. Car didn't like it. It slowed down, not by much. The timestamp was 6.67 seconds with my tune, and it was 6.73 by putting a tune in it that is kind of a known entity to make more power within certain parameters. And it's just to show that not only are these cars, each car is its own individual self. You can't just cut and paste, but it goes to show how important it is to pick the right tuner, and to also, probably more to the point, not go with a canned tune. You have to get a custom tune that is tuned on a loaded dyno, street validated, the whole bit, to get the most out of these cars. And even then, you still can't copy paste and say, okay, this tune right here, this worked for Bob's car, it's going to absolutely work for Brian's car, and it's going to absolutely work for TU's car, and it's going to absolutely work for Frank's car. It does not work like that at all. And I just, because I have the time and I know how to do this kind of stuff, I wanted to try it out and see what exactly the results would be. Come to find out, not only did the car not pick up, it kind of fell off a little bit. Didn't like it. And there were some things in the data log that I just didn't like. I mean, it went into short-term knock retard when in the tune I had actually made the knock sensors a little bit less sensitive. There are some things that it did. Again, a lot of that may have had to do with fuel quality, but the mission statement of the car is it has to run on 93 octane. If I have to run race gas, butane, Torco, or whatever to get it to run properly, then it's outside of the range of my parameters. So again, it's just kind of talking about tuning, that experience, and letting folks know that even though you think you know what you're doing, sometimes the cars just don't react the way that you think. It's a little bit of a humbling experience. So I'm going, oh yeah, I'm just going to start throwing the wood to this thing, and wah, wah, wah. Car's going, nope, not feeling it, not having it. Let's see. Oh, Rift was checking in. Yep, that was it. Just kind of a recap there. Rift's asked, have you seen the new supercharger lid by Nitro's Express? I really don't like Nitro's very much, but that lid did make more power by itself. I have seen it, but I don't have any idea if it's the result is actually legit. So here's the thing: lids, spacers, throttle bodies. Everybody claims that they pick up. A lot of folks will say that they picked up. I don't believe it until I put it on my car, take it to the drag strip, and find out what the thing's going to do on my own. Here's the only thing I don't like about lids. It has nothing to do with the lid itself. It has to do with the grubby little fingers that are putting the lids on. So if you look, the lid of the supercharger has got 2, 4, 6, 8 shitload number of bolts holding it to the case. Okay, that lid is, when it's under tension, when it's actually torqued down, it is structurally integral to that unit. The problem is you can't just take the lid and frisbee the thing onto the case and just and call it good. You can actually warp the case, even with the light amount of torque that you're using. Weird things can happen with cases. That's why a lot of guys will say, don't ice superchargers. It can distort the case if you don't ice it evenly and all this other stuff, which technically is true, but functionally is bullshit. But you certainly can do it when you're torquing something down with a power tool. So don't use power tools, that's part of it. But anyway, I think you get the point that I'm making. I've seen stuff like that, and again, spacers, no, not really. Throttle body, tough to say on a stock boost car. Again, you start throwing the wood to them, really spinning that supercharger, maybe, but it takes a lot to start getting gains. I mean, we're talking, what about the ported snout? What about, there's a lot that just isn't really getting taken into account here. That are some things that are known entities to work, but only really work when you start to really start leaning on that supercharger. Let's see, Dr. Div was saying, I was talking about the Bang 5.7 we're doing with Gap, bottom end stock as it gets with my turbo kit on it. We will find the limitations. The Hellcat cam going into this engine, HP and boost. Yeah, good engine. So that's going to be, that's the sacrificial 5.7 that's going back in the truck. So super low buck resurrection on that one with the Hellcat cam and basically just running the stock bottom end with a bunch of ring gap. I mean, it's kind of like a Big Bang, Richard Holden special, but the reality is that it probably will hold up just fine and will surprise you with the amount of power that it makes too. The response on that turbo is going to be pretty quick. I think you're going to end up liking it for the street. It may not turn the number at the drag strip, but on the street it's going to be a lot of fun. Rip is saying, that's funny you say that. My 6.1 is black and had the gray stripes and is a manual. That's my car, dude. So the first time I ever saw one of those was at a Piggly Wiggly. Parked right up front, and I mean, dude, that was my car. That's the car that I wanted. Like just put a bow around that bitch. It looked tough, man. God, that car looked good. Sounded good too. And the guy took super good care of that thing, and it sounded great. Looked the part. Lowered, had the right wheels on it. Don't know what CCWs he had on it, but it looked really nice. But yeah, black with the gray stripes, man. And I was 6-speed car, and I was going, that's the car for me. At some point, that's got to be the car for me. But then I saw this, the brochure car, and I've, got a thing for having the car on the brochure. So, Roger's asking, have you always liked the Challenger? Yeah, I have. I've always liked the Challenger, but I've always also liked the Charger. And I've always really liked the Charger because I've always liked the E-Class Mercedes. Which, you know, it just the feel, the look, the drive, they're almost identical because it's basically the same platform. The Challenger, I always have liked the Challenger. I've never really seen a downside to it. And I always thought, even going back 12 years ago, I always thought it was really cool that you had a car that was just a big body muscle car. I always liked that a little bit more than sports cars. Because to me, I felt like the sports car market was a little bit too saturated with personal luxury cars at the time. And if it was going to be a personal luxury car, I wanted it to be a freaking boat. I mean, if I'm going to be luxing it up, I want it to be a frigate, not a dinghy. So, score. That's why I always like the Mopars. They're always just nice, big, beefy cars. Kevin's asking, hey Mason, what do you think is a fair price for a 392 8-speed Challenger or Charger with 35,000 miles or less? Because I'm on a 2-year plan to pay off my 2014 RT before I seal a deal. Can't wait. Fair price for a 392 8-speed Challenger Charger with 35,000 miles or less. You're probably going to be into that thing for about 35,000, 36,000. Depends on the year though, and the way that it's going to be dressed out. But I would say 35-ish is a good place to start with that mileage. I wouldn't pay any more than about 36, 37. I will say that. And that would be for a much later year version of that. King Sai saying, what up, Mason? What's up, King? Hope you're doing good. HU37 saying, I burned out 2 sets of cats on my car. Could it be the tune related? If it is, what would cause it? Could either be running way too rich at high loads or way too lean. I decided that I had enough with this problem and installed Cook's Green Cats. Good cats, by the way. But it could definitely be in the tune. King's Eye saying, what do you think about 4-wheel drive Hellcat Charger for the police that a company is making? Should Dodge make a 4-wheel drive Hellcat for all of us too? If it would sell, I think it's a cool idea. Obviously, you always wonder a little bit about, I haven't heard about that car, but if it is real, you always worry about durability issues with the torque transfer, basically a transfer case in this case. My thing is, I actually thought the Demon was going to be all-wheel drive. I mean, if I had a house to bet when that thing was being released, I would have probably lost it. And I thought it would be a great idea, all-wheel drive and a ton of horsepower and just, what's not to love about it? And not to say that it's a bad car because it's a drag race platform, but it was just something that would have been so far out there, you know what I mean? So I would like to see something along those lines. It'd be cool if they did something, but I would really rather them take those assets and develop a V8 powered Viper that could compete with Corvette, not as a rear engine, but as an alternative that would slide into all buying demographics, meaning male and female, because Corvettes had a lot of female buyers where Vipers had none to speak of at all. Statistically speaking, they were non-existent. Automatic transmission, V8 powered, priced properly, different trim levels, things that, again, the Corvette has, market it properly, and that is a very viable vehicle platform moving deep into the future. If they would do that, I'm on board. I'd love to get my hands on one. But the reality is it's going to be tough. And also, the goal isn't to try to beat the upcoming Z06 or the upcoming Zora. It's not to beat the Vet on that level. The idea is to have a driving experience that is still an old school muscle car type driving experience like the old Vets were. And that's where you're going to pick up market share. There is a vacuum right now that is yet to be filled because the new Vette does not have a regular manual transmission. That is a bit of a problem. Again, you release the Viper, it would have to have an automatic, and I mean an HP 90 style automatic, torque converter in other words, but also offer it with a third pedal, pedal for each leg, then you're in good shape. And I think that would be a fantastic product. But that's what they need. An all-wheel drive sedan at that point, it would be cool, but it would be a little bit on the novelty side. They need a real strong line of sight, and the market there just really isn't strong enough to support it, unfortunately, I think. Rip is saying when he puts ice on his supercharger, he puts towels over it. Smart man. Rip is saying the first time I saw one of those new Challengers was a 2009 SRT8 and plumb crazy with a 6-speed. I told the guy I promise you I'll get one of these one day, and he said you can't afford it. You can't afford it, kid. That's funny. Because I ended up getting one of those, and the same thing happened with the Hellcat, and we all know what happened with that too. Absolutely. Roger's saying, I paid $38,500 for my white SRT 392 Challenger about a month ago, 4,700 miles. See, that's what I was talking about. Is the cap, again, is around that 37,000 range for what he was looking for. But there's a lot of low mileage cars still floating around out there too, so don't forget about them. Let's see. Roger Nunez saying it's his 2017. We're saying a few things that he loves about his Hellcat. First, very attainable power, and if you save up. 2, I love the attention I get with it. And 3, it never gets old to drive. That is true. Roger's saying, where I live, I get flipped off. Everyone's driving Mustangs and WRXs. Hey, it's like Bruce Lee said, man. Never be afraid to be disliked. I like it. Catalyst is asking, for a Hellcat supercharger, do you ever have to add lubricant or clean the rotors? No, you do not. Roger Nunez is saying, believe me, I know what you mean by that. It definitely gets the attention of people with Mustangs and Camaros. Yeah, it does. So, at any rate, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. We're coming up on 2 hours. Wanted to bring you guys into some of the tuning stuff that I had been working on with this car and bring you into up to speed about what has worked and what hasn't worked. A lot of times it's more important to know about the things that just fall short of your expectations. Man's got to know his limitations, and in this case, I wanted to know my limitations in terms of tuning with this car. I didn't want to necessarily leave anything on the table, and I didn't want to play with the notion that, I'm leaning a little bit too heavily on 93 octanes capabilities to maintain power with something that weighs this much. The idea was to see if the standard norms would apply to this car, considering how quick it's been with such very few modifications. And come to find out that adding timing, adding fuel, and trying to capture any more power with the car was a fruitless endeavor. And it just goes to show you that it doesn't always work out the way that the internets would tell you. And this was really more my contribution to that argument. Here it is. I've said over and over and over again what I've done to this car. I have made mention of the fact that it is a baby tune with literally nothing really done to it. I've even sent it out for what can only be described as peer review with Dr. Differential. And with the idea and the understanding being that this is a situation where tolerance stacking dictates that this car cannot get away with any more timing, or really for that matter, any more fuel or any other adjustments with the knock sensor sensitivity, by evidence of the fact that it went into short-term knock retard in a way that it normally would never have done, running a slightly leaner mixture with a little bit less timing. And it was faster with less timing at the same boost. So again, a lot of times folks will ask me, what do I plan on doing with the car? Am I going to put another tune on it? Am I going to work on the existing tune? Am I going to put it on E85? Am I going to try to tune it on race gas? And in this case, we tried a little bit of an experiment with 93 octane. Car did not like it at all. And we learned a thing or two along the way. Hopefully it helps you guys out, helps you guys learn too. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Make sure I'm not forgetting anybody in here. Go ahead and knock out the comments, and then I'm going to bounce. So let's see. Ryan's asking, how many miles do you think the 5.7 can last for, and are there any parts you recommend to extend life? Keep changing the oils. We've got fleet trucks that have got over 250,000 miles on them, and these are 2017s. But you maintain them and keep them running. Don't let them sit there and idle forever. That's true of any engine that just sits there and idle, especially these newer engines that don't do well. But at any rate, as far as anything to help it last longer, maybe a catch can, but the main thing is just keep the oil changed, keep your fluids changed. You'll be in good shape. Riff saying thumbs up. All we need to get beat 100K. Yeah, we do. Let's get that bumped up. Arthur Wall saying thumbs up. Roger saying thumbs up. I appreciate it, fellas. Rip saying, I know you don't do this, B, but damn, it would be so happy if you did my tune for me and have the same car, have the same cars as you. Yeah, that's one thing I don't do, unfortunately. I'm a little bit too nitpicky when it comes to that kind of stuff, but there are folks that can get you lined out, and believe me, they probably know, 10 times as much. They've probably forgotten more than I'll ever know in some cases. But yeah, everybody, thumbs up. Yeah, if you like the show, man, give me a thumbs up. I definitely appreciate all y'all hanging out with me. And that is going to be a wrap for this one. We will catch y'all on the next one. Y'all be safe out there. God bless. And that is it for tonight. Adios. Thanks.